Hello my crafty friends, welcome back to the Scrapbook Pal YouTube channel. Today I'm creating 3 cards using one stamp set from the recent release from Catherine Pooler. I'm going to jump right into the main products that I'm using. Alright, so the products that I'm using today, the star of the show is going to be Puffin Party. This is a new Catherine Pooler stamp. Let me pull this out so you don't get as much glare. It comes with 3 different puffins, which I'm going to Copic color. It also comes with some accessories. So it comes with the shells, the starfish, some tufts of grass, a hat for the little puffin to wear, a party hat and a pom-pom, and then it comes with this cute little crab and the sentiments that say happy birthday, sending waves of love, sure hope today is special. I brought in the water ripples from Hero Arts. I used this a couple videos ago here on the Scrapbook Pal channel. This is still available in the store. I absolutely love it. I think that it really has a huge impact on water scenes and creating oceans, so that's why I brought that one in. I love the Catherine Pooler inks. I used several of her mini ink cubes. I prefer the mini ink cubes myself because I happen to be an ink hoarder. So I used some of the ink from the Party Collection foundations. I also used the Party Collection Life of the Party as well as Party Collection Carnival. So those are the products mostly that I'll be using. Anything that I add, I will share in the video. Let's get crafty. I'm starting with the Hero Arts Water Ripple 6x6 red rubber stamp. I have a piece of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I laid it over the top, put some adhesive on the back of it so it would stick on my Misty. I did remove the foam from my Misty, and I'm adding some Catherine Pooler inks in Fiesta Blue and Something Borrowed. I'm not adding them in any particular order. I spray it with some water. I use my finger to make sure that there's no harsh lines, and look at how beautiful this background turns out. I'm going to bring in a piece of Strathmore craft paper. This is very thin paper, and I'm going to do a little bit of inking on it. I wanted to lighten it a little bit, so I'm using some antique linen distress oxide as well as some tea dye around the edges, and then I will bring in some ground espresso and vintage photo, and I'm going to spritz them with water, use a paintbrush, and I'm going to splatter the sand all over this piece. Once I get this finished, I'll bring in a Hero Arts Infinity die. This is the largest die in the collection. It's approximately going to cut this out to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I'm going to adhere that shoreline. I did tear the paper towards me in the shape that you can see, so that is just simply taking the cardstock and tearing it in a shoreline orientation. Once I get this glued down, I'm going to bring in a smaller Hero Arts Infinity die, and we're going to cut out the center of this. So off camera, I do end up heat embossing the sentiment in white embossing powder, so it says sure hope today is special. I glued my frame down onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding card panel, added some foam tape to the middle rectangle that I cut out. There are my colored puffins. Aren't they adorable? And so they were easy peasy to color. I just used some C markers, some YR markers, and some Y markers to color the bill. I glue it down, and that is quickly card number 1. For card number 2, I'm going to make a mini slimline. I have a panel that's Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock that's been cut to 5 3/4 by 3, and I am simply going to use this adorable crab. Now, this crab does have a little circles where the eyes should be, so later on I will come in and I will stamp those eyes, but for now I'm changing the orientation. I'm using several different colors from Catherine Pooler. I'm using the Tutti Frutti, and then this is the the orange is the tiki torch. I believe the tiara is the yellow. The lime Ricky is going to be the green. And I think I finish off with aquatini and flirty fuchsia. And I love how different, don't these cards just look completely different? That was one of the things that I absolutely loved about playing with this stamp set, is that there were so many ideas that were going through my head. I only had so much time for one video, but I could just think of many cards that I would like to make using this one stamp set. Once I finish this, I'm going to fill in some of the spots. So there's a couple places where I felt like I could still add a few more crabs just to make sure that I get this nice and filled up, because I love the look of these crabs. They are just so incredibly happy. I will bring in the Cleo Slimline die, and I am going to actually emboss with it. So I am going to lay down my plate, then I will put my embossing pad over the top of it. Because this is a mini Slimline, I'm able to use my regular cutting plates for this, and I'll run it through my machine on the embossing. So I'm going to remove one of my little sections and use it for embossing, and I'm going to get a really nice kind of quilted look on this card. And I thought that it just added a little bit more interest and a little bit more texture to it. I'm going to finish up right here. If you haven't subscribed to the Scrapbook Pal channel, we would absolutely love for you to subscribe and ring the bell so that you're notified whenever we do upload a video. I'm going to take some of that purple tape. I'm trying to make sure that the top and bottom is even where the circles are, so I didn't want half a circle at the top and a full circle at the bottom. And then I have a piece of heavy vellum from my stash, and I am going to use the let's see here, the Flirty Fuchsia, and I am going to stamp on this vellum the sentiment that says "Sending Waves of Love." This Catherine Pooler ink will stay wet enough for me to bring in some Hero Arts clear embossing powder. I'm going to put that over the top of that, and then I'm going to heat set it. And when I heat set it, I'm going to heat set it from behind. So it really helps so that I don't burn the paper. This vellum that I happen to have does tend to work really nicely with heat embossing. I have some generic circle dies. I've cut out a circle, and now I'm going to start assembling my card. I'm going to add some art glitter glue to the back of the lettering. That will hide it. I'm also going to let it sit for just a moment so that it gets a little bit of air over the top of it, which will prevent it from like completely smushing and splatting underneath it. You saw that I did have a red card base. I'm actually going to bring in a green card base that was cut to 7 by 6. I did score it on the 7-inch side at 3.5. My finished mini Slimline is going to be 3.5 by 7. But first I'm going to use my Tim Holtz scissors. Love those long scissors. And I'm going to cut off that overhang, add some art glitter glue to the back, center this onto my card panel. And I think that green is much nicer than the red was. It's much more summery, don't you think? I've added the little eyes to my crab. I'm going to bring in card number 1. And now we have 2 cards completed. I have a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I did use some stencil material from my stash and that Cleo die from Catherine Pooler. Again, this is part of the Waves of Happiness release, and I am going to add some ink to this panel through the stencil. I am using Catherine Pooler's Be Mine, which is a beautiful pink. I really struggled. This is a super easy card, but I struggled with it because I just had a ton of mishaps. So my original idea was ombre. I was going to go dark at the bottom and then lighten it up as I went towards the top. So you can see that I'm not adding as much ink and then I'm going to eventually have a mishap, which is going to prevent me from doing that. This is an old stencil. This is an old die set. It's a scalloped die circle from MFT. I'm placing my sentiment, happy birthday, and my puffin, making sure that that's going to fit nicely. Off camera, I did stamp the birthday hat and the pom-pom, and I just fussy cut it out because it was super small. I'm going to trim down my panel. My panel is going to be 8.5 by 3.5. And my card base is going to be Nina Solar White 110 pound cardstock. It will be cut to 8 3/4 by 3 3/4. I don't have a preferred slimline size. 8 1/4 by 3 1/4 is good. 8.5 by 3.5. I can go all the way up to 9 by 4. I'm really not particular about what slimline size that I end up using. So I am cutting that circle out, and I'm going to do some more ink blending. I'm just cleaning up my work surface, and I'm going to use the Be Mine and Coral Cabana. So I felt like I needed a second color in here, and so I'm bringing in that Coral Cabana. I will use the Be Mine around the edges once I stamp my sentiment. So this sentiment is going to be heat embossed using that same Hero Arts white embossing powder that I used before. I do use Versamark ink with my white embossing powder, so if you're wondering what ink I was using, I do use my anti-static tool to make sure that I don't have any stray embossing powder. And easy peasy, quick and easy. Here's my sentiment. I'll run that Hero Arts white embossing powder over the top of it, and then I will heat set it with my gun. Once I do that, then I will start with my ink blending. Let that cool off just a moment, put my heat tool away, and then I'm using what's on my brush, and I'll see how dark that is and whether or not I need to add more ink. And I decide that I'm going to add that Coral Cabana first. And once I start putting it on, I realize that I want it to be just a little bit deeper, so I will come back in with that Be Mine and I will darken that up. And I'm just using some blending brushes from my stash. Once I finish this up, I will bring in my Distress Sprayer again and some water. This is water reactive ink, so I wiped off my sentiment to make sure that that white was really bright, and now I'm using that Coral Cabana and I'm going around the edges, and you can see that I smudged. So I ended up getting a smudge. I tried to clean it off with a baby wipe. I end up ruining that piece of the paper, and so I am going to have to come up with another little fix. So I'm going to add the party hat to my puffin. Because that little scratch mark was bothering me, I took three small 1/4 inch strips of paper, and I used the Coral Cabana and the Be Mine. I inked them, and then I taped them together so it created one continuous rectangle, and that's what I'm going to use to cover that up. So there's where I brought the water in. I'm using my microfiber cloth just to get a little bit of texture on that circle. I'm going to glue that circle directly down to my card base. Actually, my card panel. This is my card base. And I'm going to glue this on, and that's when I decided to, off camera, it was just really bothering me that where I took the paper and it kind of pilled up. So I'm going to take and create this little strip that I'm going to add, and I'm going to glue my puffin down directly. I didn't use any foam adhesive, surprise, surprise. And once I add that 3-strip piece of, I guess embellishment is what it's going to be called, I am finished with this card. So this was a really easy card. I just had you know, some inking issues that were user error, and once I got those taken care of and was able to cover those up, I was super happy with the card. I will show you a final look again of all 3 cards. Let me know in the description box below which card's your favorite. Do you like the A2 size, the mini Slimline, or the Slimline? I'm going to lay them all out for you once I get this cut, and I wanted to add a little bit more of that coral cabana, and I realized I was going to ruin my card and I better stop while I was ahead. So there's all 3 cards. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Until next time, I hope that you have a fabulous day.